Baylor throws it often. They throw it well. They throw it as well as anyone in the country. We bring in Sean Cordy from Today's U to help us set up the wide receiver spot with Corey Coleman off to the NFL. Sean, of course, Katie Cannon is our number one guy. This is a guy that kind of burst onto the scene actually as a freshman 2 years ago and really ripped up some defenses, most notably Michigan State in the Cotton Bowl, and came back and caught 50 last year at almost 20 yards per catch. His big effort against Oklahoma State with 210 yards. So Katie Cannon, though, without Coleman, looked to as that number one guy.
I mean, I think Katie can be the exact same player that Corey Coleman was. He could be fast. He's just as agile. It's hard. It's crazy to say, considering Coleman was on pace to break the record last year until the quarterbacks went down. But Katie, as you just said, freshman year, he looked like he could have been a Biletnikoff winner. He was going against some non-conference FCS opponents, of course, but he was leading the league or the nation in touchdowns and yards per catch for a while. And that's the type of player that he could be this year now in the starting role. That's crazy to think that he's going to be the number one guy. I could see him taking 1,500 yards easily, 20 touchdowns. Should Baylor's offense work as it did last year? With Jim Grobe, we'll see. But he said he's not going to change anything, so that's a lot of hope for KD right now.
And that would have been my take on it going into 2015, is that these guys were basically interchangeable. Now, I don't watch every game like you do, but I see 3 or 4 or 5 Baylor games plus postseason play every year. And that was my thought from what I saw in 2014, is that they were basically very comparable players. So I was a bit surprised to see Coleman just take over. Cannon obviously had a nice season, but Coleman, as you mentioned, if the quarterback didn't go down, the 3 quarterbacks didn't go down, he's going to set the Big 12 record for touchdown receptions. So I'm going to throw out the complimentary guys, because obviously they're going to fill the 2, 3, and 4 spots and beyond that. And you kind of let us know where at least you think they stand at this point. Obviously, much to be determined in August camp when you talk about Chris Platt, who caught 11 balls last year. Ishmael Zamara comes off a freshman season with 2 touchdowns, 9 catches. Lynx Hawthorne, probably the guy that we've seen the most because he's had to play some quarterback, and he carries the ball as a running back of sorts, not as a running back, but in running back style, gained 129 yards as a rusher last year. So how did those guys stack up?
Yeah, Baylor is top wide receiver U for a while. And now that you take away Corey Coleman and Jay Lee, the 2 seniors that left, you kind of look at the stats and you don't really see a lot there to really brag about. As you said, their stats, Chris Platt was the number 4 with 155 yards. But these are speed burners that Baylor has done very well with, that you think that should the offense be operating as it has the past 3 years, leading the nation in scoring, that these are players that could reach 1,000 yards even in, and I'd say the number 2 would probably be Chris Platt, who was a track star, I think he was a 3-time Texas state champion in the quarter mile. He's an absolute speed burner, and he keeps up the speed throughout the game. He hasn't played a lot because of those 3 or 4 other players in front of him, but now that he's going to be able to play at a more substantial role, he should be able to play at a KD Cannon type role, with Cannon taking the Corey Coleman role. So we'll see about that. But the more interesting thing for me is we're talking about these players are 6 foot and really speed burners, but you also got 2 players, Ishmael Zamara and Quan Jones. They're like Calvin Johnson type physical receivers. I mean, they're not going to be as great as that player Megatron, but they've got a different type of skill set that Baylor hasn't seen before. So it'll be interesting to see how they play in the offense, opposed to like even Antoine Goodley, Corey Coleman have in the past.
All right, Baylor loaded at wide receiver. Katie Cannon, at least among college football households, a household name after a big season his first 2 years, but look for him to really explode without Corey Coleman on the other side gaining so much attention. All right, Sean Cordy from Today's U talking Baylor offense at wide receiver, one of the prime positions in college football. All right, Sean, thanks a lot.
All right, thanks, Mark.